So now looking at the listening test, hostel accommodation in Darwin. Let's start with the test.
Sure.
So, that hostel has parking, though that doesn't really...
Find any information about accommodation in Darwin?
Hi, I was just going to call you. I found some on the internet. There are quite a few hostels for backpackers there. The first possibility I found was a hostel called Top End Backpackers.
Okay.
It's pretty cheap. You can get a bed in a dormitory for $19 per person. Private rooms cost a bit more, but we'll be okay in dormitories, won't we?
Sure.
So, that hostel has parking, though that doesn't really matter to us, as we'll be using public transport.
Yeah. Are there any reviews on the website from people who have been there?
Well, yes. They aren't all that good, though. Some people said they didn't like the staff. They had an unfriendly attitude.
Your answer is they had an unfriendly attitude. So answer is what?
Unfriendly.
Correct.
Okay, unfriendly.
Unfriendly, right? Okay. So the parking is available. They have a nice pool. Air conditioning is 2 dash.
That's quite unusual in a hostel. Usually all the staff are really welcoming.
That's what I thought. People said they liked the pool and the fact that the rooms had air conditioning. But the problem with that was that it was very noisy, so they were kept awake. But it was too hot if they turned it off.
लोगों શું કીધું કે એર કન્ડિશનિંગ માં એટલી અવાજ આવતી હતી કે લોકો આખી રાત જાગતા જ રહ્યા. They were kept awake. The problem was
Noisy.
Now we have Gumtree Lodge and cost પછી અહીંયા dash in the dormitories.
So they had to put up with it.
Someone told me there's another hostel called Gumtree something.
Gumtree Lodge. It costs a bit more, $45 a person.
What?
Oh, no, that's for private rooms. It's $23.50 for the dorms.
પહેલા શું બોલે 45
45
per person. પેલી ચમકી જાય કે ઓ માં 45 પછી બોલે કે sorry. The answer is
23.50.
23.50. Right? So he changes it.
That's more like it.
It looks to be in quite a good location, a bit out of town and...
So it's out of location, so that's a good, quiet location.
Quiet, but with good transport and quite near a beach.
Has it got a pool?
Yes, and its own gardens. The reviews for that one are mostly okay, except for one person who said they couldn't sleep because there were insects flying around in the dormitories.
Not for me then.
એટલે પેલા કે બધાય આપ્યા સારા રિવ્યુઝ આપ્યા પણ એક જણા એવું કીધું કે ભાઈ જીવડા ઉડતા હતા ડોર્મેટરીઝ માં. So insects. What he said? Insects in the dormitories. પછી we have the Kangaroo Lodge. Cost કેટલું છે? $22. Downtown location. Reception at the lodge is always open. No lockers in the rooms. The dash are very clean. It seems to be a dash every night.
And I'd rather be somewhere central, really.
Right. There's a place called Kangaroo Lodge. They've got dorms at $22, and it's downtown.
પેલી એમ કે મને સેન્ટ્રલ લોકેશનમાં જોઈએ. So it is downtown. Downtown એટલે ગામમાં વચ્ચોવચ, સિટીમાં વચ્ચોવચ એને શું કહેવાય? Downtown.
Near all the restaurants and clubs and everything. So that should suit you. And it doesn't close at night.
So there's always someone on reception? That sounds good.
The only criticism I saw was that the rooms were a bit messy and untidy because people just left their clothes and stuff all over the beds and the floor.
Don't hostels usually have lockers in the bedrooms where you can leave your stuff?
Yeah, they do usually, but apparently they don't here. Still, hostels are never particularly tidy places, so that doesn't bother me. And the same person said that the standard of cleanliness was pretty good, and especially the bathrooms. They were excellent as far as that went.
Right. Yeah, I reckon Kangaroo Lodge sounds the best.
Me too. Quite a lot of people reviewing it said it was really fun there. Like every night everyone staying there got together and ended up having a party. So it sounds like it's got a really good atmosphere.
So what is it? What are very clean? The
Bathroom.
Bathrooms.
The rooms are messy. They don't have lockers, but the bathrooms are clean. And it seems to be there's a party every night. Answer is party. Okay, next question, 7 to 10.
Okay, let's go for that one.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you will have some time to look at the questions 7 to 10.
I've never stayed in a...
F-O-R-T.
Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Did you get the address of Kangaroo Lodge?
Yes, it's on Shadforth Lane.
Can you spell that?
S-H-A-D-F-O-R-T-H. It's near the transit centre, where the intercity buses and the airport buses drop you off.
Cool. I'm really looking forward to this. I've never stayed in a hostel before. Do they provide bed linen, sheets and things?
Yeah. And you can usually either bring your own towel or hire one there. But they don't usually provide those for free.
Okay. And what happens about meals?
Well, you don't have to pay extra for breakfast. It varies a lot in different places, but generally it's okay. And there's usually a cafe where you can buy a snack or a hot meal for lunch. But actually, if you're really travelling on the cheap, usually for every 5 or 6 rooms, there's a kitchen where you can knock up a snack. And that saves a lot of money.
Great. Right. Well, shall I go ahead and book that?
That is the end of section 1.
તો અહીંયા શું પૂછે પેલી meals માટે પૂછે meals પણ બોલે કેવું ખબર what about meals so answer is she says meals so meals માં શું છે breakfast is included અને you have દરેક 4-5 rooms જોડે જોડે એક shared kitchen okay now we are looking at the Anglia sculpture park so you have to just tick the correct one A B C from here let's start.
You now have half a minute to check your answers. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16.
Behind the sculpture. Hello everyone and welcome to the Anglia Sculpture Park. Right, well the idea behind the sculpture park is that it's a place where works of art such as large sculptures and carvings can be displayed out of doors in a natural setting. As you'll have noticed,
so question છે પહેલો કે the land where the park is located was previously પહેલા શું હતું સવાલ શું છે કે આ જમીન પહેલા શું હતી it was completely covered by forest પહેલા જંગલ હતું it was a site of a private house or it was occupied by a factory.
When you drove here, most of the land around the park is farmland.
So એ બોલે કે તમે જે આવ્યા ત્યારે જોયું કે અહીંયાની બધી જમીન જે છે એ ઓલરેડી farmland છે અહીંયા લખેલું previously શું હતું so A answer નથી.
The park itself belonged to a family called the De Quinces.
De Quinces કરીને એક પરિવાર રહેતું આ ફાર્મ એ લોકોનું થાય છે એ લોકોની અહીંયા ઘણા વર્ષો પહેલા ફેક્ટરી હતી
Who had made a lot of money from manufacturing farm machinery and who also owned substantial stretches of forest land to the north of the park.
એ લોકોની અહીંયા આ પાર્કના આજુબાજુની બધી જમીન એ લોકોની હતી.
They built a house in the center of the park.
એ લોકોએ આ ઘર અહીંયા શું આ પાર્કના વચ્ચોવચ્ચ એ લોકોએ એક પોતાનું ઘર બનાવેલું.
Not far from where we're standing now.
From where? એટલે આપણે જ્યાં ઊભા છે ત્યાં. So the land where the sculpture park is located was previously what? A, B or C? The answer is B. It was a site of a private house. What is unusual about the Anglia sculpture? Unusual means what is strange.
But this burnt down in 1980, and the De Quinces then sold the land. The Anglia Sculpture Park isn't the only one in the country. Several of the London parks sometimes display contemporary sculptures, and
એટલે કે ये जो पार्क है इंग्लिश स्कल्पचर पार्क वो एक दुनिया का अकेला पार्क नहीं है, ऐसा लंदन में भी है. But what is unusual means what makes it different from other parks.
there are a couple of other permanent sculpture parks in England.
So there are other permanent parks, but what is special? So options are artists have sculptures especially for it. There are people who made એના માટે જ પેલા sculptures બનાવ્યા. Some of its sculptures were donated by the artists. કે અમુક જે sculptures છે એ artist લોકોએ donate કરેલા. It only shows contemporary sculptures. Contemporary means modern.
But we're unique in that some of our sculptures were actually created for the sites they occupy here. And we also show sculptures by a wider range of artists.
So what's your answer?
A. A.
Yeah. They have been specially made, artists have specially made it. So some of them have been specially designed for that location, right? Okay. Now, what is the theme of Joe Trement's burnt sculptures? And જે burnt sculptures બનાવ્યા એનું theme શું છે? The contrast between nature and urban life. City and urban life na contrast બતાવ્યું. The effects of man on the environment or the violence of nature.
Than anywhere else in the country. For example, at present we have an exhibition by Joe Tremaine of what he calls burnt sculptures. These are wood and stone sculptures that he's carved and marked with fire to illustrate the ferocity and intensity of the forces that have shaped our planet over millions of years.
So the incidents which have shaped our planet for millions of years, humans have not been there for millions of years. Ferocity means ઘાતક. એટલે જે કુદરતનું જે આક્રોશ છે જેનાથી અર્થ ને શેપ આપવામાં આવ્યું છે. So what is the answer?
C.
See, that is the violence of nature right here.
They look really dramatic in this rural setting. To range of artists than anywhere else in the country. For example, at present we have an exhibition by Joe Tremaine of what he calls burnt sculptures. These are wood and stone sculptures that he's carved and marked with fire to illustrate the ferocity and intensity of the forces that have shaped our planet over millions of years.
So the word for nature is again use કર્યું forces that have shaped our planet. We are not the forces who have shaped our planet, right? The path by the lower lake જવાનો જે રસ્તો છે એ કેવો છે? Is rather wet in some places. અમુક જગ્યા પર ભીનું છે. It has recently been repaired. હમણાં એ લોકોએ repair કર્યું. Or it is difficult to walk on. એના પર અત્યારે ચાલવામાં તકલીફ પડે છે. ટેન્સ પણ જોવાનું પ્રેઝન્ટમાં છે કે પાસ્ટમાં કે પહેલા તકલીફ પડતી હતી અત્યારે તકલીફ ચાલવામાં પડે છે.
They look really dramatic in this rural setting. To see some of the sculptures, you'll need to follow the path alongside the lower lake. We had to renovate this after the lake overflowed its banks.
We had to renovate it. અમારે એને renovate કરવું પડેલું because of the overflow. એટલે નદી ભરાઈ ગયેલી, રસ્તાને overflow કરવો પડેલું. Renovate કરવો પડેલું.
Couple of months ago and flooded the area. The water level's back to normal now and you shouldn't have any trouble. The path's very level underfoot. You should be
હવે તમને ચાલવામાં તકલીફ નહીં પડી જોઈએ. હવે પાથ એકદમ લેવલ થઈ ગયો છે. એટલે હવે આવા જો અત્યારે પાણી ભરાઈ ગયું પણ પાણી બધું ઉતરી ગયું હવે બધું નોર્મલ થઈ ગયું. So A, B or C?
B.
B, correct. So that is કે it has been recently repaired. પછી ભીનું નથી કારણ કે પાણી ઉતરી ગયું અને હવે એકદમ લેવલ થઈ ગયું તો ચાલવામાં તકલીફ ના પડે. So it is not difficult to walk on. What does the speaker say about the visitor center? Visitor center ની શું વાત? It is being enlarged at present. અત્યારે હાલમાં એને મોટું કરવામાં આવી રહ્યું છે. It has received an international award or it was designed by a Canadian architect.
Back at the visitor centre at about 4 o'clock. If you have time, it's worth taking a look at the centre itself. It's not possible to go upstairs at present, as builders are working there adding another floor.
ઉપર જવાનું પોસિબલ નથી because ઉપરનો માળમાં એ લોકો renovation કરી રહ્યા છે. So
But the rest's well worth seeing. The architect was Guy King. He was actually born in this part of England, but he recently designed a museum in Canada that won a prize for innovation in public buildings.
So આ ઉપરનો માળ જે છે અમે વધારી રહ્યા છે. બરાબર? અને બનાવવાવાળો કોણ છે? He was a British guy who was born in Britain, બરાબર? But એને Canadian company માટે કરેલું. So answer is it was not designed by Canadian architect because the guy was British.
A.
So answer is A. It is being enlarged at the present.
If you want to get something to eat when you get back, like a snack or a sandwich, the terrace room is currently closed. But you can go to the kiosk and buy something, then sit on one of the chairs overlooking the lower lake and enjoy the view as you're eating.
So અત્યારે પેલો કેવો કેટલું બધું જલેબીની જેમ બોલે. જો સેન્ડવિચ ને નાસ્તો કરવો હોય તો ટેરેસ નો રૂમ અત્યારે બંધ છે. એટલે આન્સર બી નથી. So you can get the food at the kiosk. અને ફૂડ લઈને તમે લોઅર લેક ની સામે બેસીને તમે વ્યૂ એન્જોય કરતા કરતા ખાઈ શકો. So answer is A. And now we have the actual map of it. Here, can you see it? શું કરવાનું છે આપણે અહીંયા? આ ઇન્ફોર્મેશન ને મેચ કરવાની છે with the directions. So let's start. We have to put everything. So Joe Tremaine sculptures, Giorgio Catalucci bird sculptures, garden gallery and longhouse.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation,
If you look at your map, you'll see the visitor centre, where we are now, at the bottom.
So we are over here right now, visitor center પર છે. So એ પ્રમાણે આપણે શું કરવાનું? We have to select the route. For Joe Tremaine sculptures, Giorgio Catalucci bird sculptures, all of them. Let's start.
Just by the entrance. Since we only have an hour, you might not be able to get right around the park, but you can choose to visit some of the highlights. You might like to take a look at the Joe Tremaine sculptures, which are displayed on this side of the upper lake, just behind the education centre and near the bridge. They're really impressive, but please remember not to let your children climb on them. One of our most popular exhibitions is the Giorgio Catalucci bird sculptures. They're just across the bridge on the north side of the lower lake. I love the way they're scattered around in the long grass beside the lake, looking as if they're just about to take to their wings. You could also go to the garden gallery. It's on this side of the upper lake. From the visitor centre, you go to the education centre, then keep on along the path and you'll see it on your right. There's an exhibition of animal carvings there which is well worth a look. We also have the Longhouse. That's quite a walk. From here, you go to the bridge and then turn left on the other side. Soon you'll see a winding pathway going up towards the northern boundary of the park. Go up there and you'll find it at the top. They have some abstract metal sculptures that are well worth seeing if you have time. Okay, well, now...
So where's the Joe Tremaine sculptures?
E.
E. Then Catalucci,
C.
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 Garden gallery is
F.
F. And last one, Longhouse is
A.
A. Is it clear, everyone? Now we have marketing report. So you have to answer the questions A, B, and C again.
Now, if you
Marketing student called Leo talking to a second-year student called Anna about his marketing report. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26.
Sure about it. Anna, I wanted to ask you about my marketing report. I'm not sure about it.
That's okay, Leo.
So why did he choose instant coffee? And આ topic કેમ choose કર્યું? Because એના પર એને બહુ બધું material મળેલું. He had some practical experience. આ ફિલ્ડમાં એને પોતાનો experience હતું. Or he had an idea of a brand he wanted to target. એટલે એને જે brand ને target કરવો હતો એનો idea હતો.
So what do you have to do?
Choose a product or service, then compare two organisations that produce it. I'm doing instant coffee.
But haven't you got a weekend job in a clothing store?
પેલી કે તું તો કપડા तुम कपड़े की दुकान में काम करते हो यानी तुम्हारे पास एक्सपीरियंस तो कपड़े की दुकान में. So why did you choose coffee?
Why didn't you choose clothing?
That was my first thought, because I thought it'd give me some practical examples. But when I searched for men's clothing on the internet, there were hardly any articles.
यानी जब मैंने इंटरनेट पे देखा तब कोई आर्टिकल्स मेंस क्लोथिंग पे नहीं मिले.
So then I looked for coffee, and I found there were tons.
I found tons of articles about coffee. So what is your answer? A, B or C?
A.
A, right? Your answer would be A. Next question. Leo discovered that in Australia, recent technological developments, जो अत्यारे जे machines के जो developments है, what are they doing? They're producing less healthy types of instant coffee. यानी unhealthy coffee बना रहे हैं वो लोग. They are reducing the demand for instant coffee. Means technology is reducing the demand of instant coffee, or they are improving the quality of instant coffee.
Yeah, there are so many brands on the market now. Okay, so how much have you actually written?
I've done part 1 on economic and technological factors. I found some good data on technological changes, how in Australia fewer people are buying instant coffee because of cheap coffee percolators that they can use to make real coffee at home.
What is the answer? A, B or C?
B.
B, correct. What is saying? He's saying that because of technological advances, there are percolators. Percolators are like coffee machines, right? So they are reducing the demand for instant coffee. Means people don't want instant because they can make it at home.
I found some good data on technological changes, how in Australia fewer people are buying instant coffee because of cheap coffee percolators that they can use to make real coffee at home.
Because they can make it. So fewer people, means less and less people are going for coffee. What do the speakers agree about the Leo's table of coffee products? બંને લોકો આજે એને ટેબલ બનાવ્યું છે ઇન્ફોર્મેશનનું, એમાં શું કરવાની જરૂર છે? It needs more explanation in the text. વધારે explanation આપવાની જરૂર. It is factually inaccurate in some places. અમુક details ખોટી છે. And it would be best to put this in the appendix. And appendix માં મૂકવાનું best રહેશે location.
But there's also a movement away from drinking coffee.
Switching to things like herbal teas instead because they think it's healthier. But that's not really to do with technology. It's more cultural.
So the girl argues that he's switching. There are also changes for healthy tea, green tea and all that. So he says that has nothing to do with the recent technological development.
Anyway, for part 2, I'm comparing two instant coffee companies, Coffee Now and Schaffers, and I've made this table of products.
Right. Let's see. So you've got the brand names and prices and selling size and descriptions. Okay, the table looks good. You'll get marks for research there. Where will it go?
In the section on the marketing mix, under product.
Not in the appendix?
No.
OK, but it's too factual on its own. You need to add some comment in that section about the implications of the figures.
Right. I'll do that.
So first she says that where are you putting it? So he says I was going to put it in the appendix, but I'm not putting it in the appendix. So both of them don't agree about the appendix. The teacher was suggesting appendix, but the student says he will not put it in the appendix. So what does she say? That it is very factual. એટલે whatever આના જે complications છે તમારે સમજાવવા પડશે. So what is your answer here? Answer A. A. So it needs more explanation in the text. Is it clear? Okay. What do they decide about the description of Schaeffer's coffee as a marketing follower, as a market follower? So A, B or C? What do they decide? બંને જણાએ decide કર્યું હોવું જોઈએ. દોનોને decide किया होना चाहिए. Leo needs to define his terms. Means whatever terms are he needs to define. Leo needs to provide more evidence. He needs to give more proof. Now, Leo needs to put it in a different section.
Now, I want to say that I think that Schaeffer's is more of a follower than a leader in the coffee industry. Now, I'm putting that in the section on market share. Does that seem okay?
Let's see. So, you've begun by explaining what market share is, that's important. But you've got to be careful how you give that opinion.
Do you think it should go in another section?
Well, it's fine where it is, but you've got to back it up with some data, or they'll say your report lacks weight.
Okay.
So she says that are you going to put it in a different section? It's fine, જ્યાં છે બરાબર છે, but it needs to have data to back it up. Support કરવા માટે data જોઈએ. So what is your answer? B. Right. What does Anna say about the originality of someone's first marketing report? એટલે જે first report હોય એની originality માટે શું બોલે? Clear analysis of data can be considered original. અગર જો ડેટાનો એનાલિસિસ તમે ક્લિયર કર્યું હોય, that is original. Graphs and diagrams should be original and not copied. They should not be copied. The report should contain some original data collected by the student.
One thing I'm worried about is finding anything original to say.
Well, since this is your first marketing report, you're not expected to go out and do interviews and things to collect your own data. You're just using published data. So the analysis you do might not throw up anything that people didn't know before. But the focus is more on how you handle the data. I mean, you might take something like a graph of sales directly from a website, but what makes your work original is the perspective you provide by your interpretation of it.
Oh. You know, it's all so different from...
So what is it? A, B or C? Answer is A again. Clear analysis of data can be considered original because you're not going to create anything new. You're not going out in the market. So they should be original. So original નહીં હોય તો ચાલે, પણ એના પર તમારી જે report છે એ તમારા માઇન્ડની original હોવી જોઈએ, right? So clear analysis of data can be considered original. Now the last question is, what difference between his school assignments and this report has surprised Leo? એટલે એ જે રેગ્યુલર જે સ્કૂલમાં જે અસાઇનમેન્ટ કરતો હતો અને આ જે રિપોર્ટ બનાવવાની હતી, બંનેમાં શું ફરક? He is not knowing the criteria for getting a good mark. એને ખબર જ નથી કે કયા બેસિસ પર ટીચર એને ગ્રેડ આપશે. Being required to produce work without assistance means in this the difference is કે અહીંયા કોઈ મદદ નહીં મળે, એને જાતે કરવું પડે. Having to do a great deal of research, કે research બહુ બધી કરવી પડે. આમાંથી કઈ વસ્તુ એને સરપ્રાઈઝ કરી નાખી?
Focus is more on how you handle the data. I mean, you might take something like a graph of sales directly from a website,
But what makes your work original is the perspective you provide by your interpretation of it.
Oh. You know, it's all so different from business studies assignments at school. It's really surprised me.
What? How much research you have to do?
I expected that. It's more, I knew exactly what I had to do to get a good grade at school. And I knew I'd be expected to go more deeply into things here. But I haven't got information on how the lecturer is going to grade my work, what he's looking for.
So what was it that he did not know, and it was surprising? A, B, or C?
B.
B or A?
A.
He did not know how the teacher was going to grade his report. એને ખબર જ નહીં કે કયા ક્રાઇટેરિયાના બેસિસ પર એના માર્ક્સ ચેક થશે. એને ખબર હતી કે રિસર્ચ બહુ બધી કરવાની છે, તો he was ready with that, right? Okay. Now here are the notes completion. So this should be easy. Notes on specific sections of marketing report. Give a brief overview including the dash. Link each problem to a dash which explains it. Then include details such as participants, dash, and sequence. Selection is often poorly done because of lack of dash.
Have what they call an executive summary at the beginning. I forgot that and I got marked down.
Yeah, I've drafted it. I've got an overview.
Have you got something about the background there?
Yeah.
Good.
So, I've just made a summary of the main points. I wasn't sure whether or not I should have my aims there.
No, that's too personal. The executive summary is just like what a manager would read to get a general idea of your report if he was in a hurry.
Right. Then I'm okay for the first main part, all of the macro environment stuff. But it's when I get onto the problem section.
So what does he have to include? He has to include a background. Give a brief overview including the background. So this is what it just says.
To get a general idea of your report if he was in a hurry.
Right. Then I'm okay for the first main part, all of the macro environment stuff. But it's when I get onto the problem section. I've listed all the problems that Coffee Now and Shaffers are facing. But then what?
Well, you have to prioritise. So indicate the main problems, and then you analyse each one by connecting it with a theory. That's where your reading comes in.
How do you connect it? Link each problem to a theory, right? And include details such as participants dash.
Okay.
Have you done your implementation section yet?
I've thought about it. So that's where I write about what could be done about the problems.
Yes. And it's got to be practical, so don't forget to specify things like who would be involved, and the cost, and the order that things would be done in.
Right. Well, that shouldn't take long.
You'd be surprised. Actually, that's the bit that tends to get badly done because people run out of time. That and the conclusion.
Oh. Any hints for that?
So here include details such as who's participating, then
Cost.
and selection is often poorly done because of lack of
Time.
time. And don't use new material here.
Well, it's got to draw out the main points from your report. So it's got to be quite general. You need to avoid introducing new stuff here. It's got to sum up what you've said earlier.
So now last 10 questions for the day. 31 to 40. History of fireworks in Europe. So we'll quickly do it. 13th and 16th centuries, fireworks were introduced from China. Their use was mainly to do with what? બે વસ્તુ માટે ફટાકડા use કરતા. War and dash in plays and festivals.
Questions 31 to 40.
Used for military tells us a lot about the changing roles of scientists and technicians in Europe. Fireworks were introduced from China in the 13th century. Up to the 16th century, they were generally used for military purposes, with rockets and fire tubes being thrown at the enemy. But they were also sometimes a feature of plays and festivals, where their chief purpose was related to religion.
First purpose was military, so that is war. And second was used in plays and festivals, where the chief purpose was
Religion.
religion. Right? Okay. Now next one, various features of dash were shown in the fireworks display. Features of what? Kai vastuna features bataiva. Scientists were interested in using ideas from firework displays to make what? To make human dash possible and to show the formation of dash.
By the 17th century, the rulers of Europe had started using fireworks as a way of marking royal occasions. Technicians were employed to stage spectacular shows which displayed aspects of nature, with representations of the sun, snow and rain.
Various aspects of nature. Aspect ni jagya che various features of dash were shown, like sun, snow and rain. So answer is
Nature.
nature, right?
These shows were designed for the enjoyment of the nobility and to impress ordinary people. But fireworks also aroused the interest of scientists, who started to think of new uses for them. After seeing one firework display where a model of a dragon was propelled along a rope by rockets, scientists thought that in a similar way humans might be able to achieve flight, a dream of many scientists at the time. Other scientists, such as the chemist Robert Boyle, noticed how in displays one firework might actually light another, and it occurred to him that fireworks might provide an effective way of demonstrating how stars were formed.
So they were creating dragons firework, એટલે dragons ઉડતા બતાવે. એનાથી એ લોકોને માઇન્ડમાં એવું કે fireworks થી flight પણ possible છે. To make human dash possible. Answer is
Flight.
flight. And 34th one, to show the formation of
Stars.
stars. So they got ideas about ke fireworks ne kઈ રીતે use કરે. Then in London, scientists were distrustful at first. એ લોકો fireworks પર પહેલા trust નહીં કર્યું. Later, they investigated dash uses of fireworks. Fireworks na kaya uses થાય. Example for sailors. પછી St. Petersburg, Russia ma fireworks were seen as a method of dash for people. લોકો માટે શેનો method હતો? In Paris, displays emphasize the power of the dash and scientists aim to provide dash.
Scientists at the time often depended on the royal courts for patronage. But there was considerable variation in the relationships between the courts and scientists in different countries. This was reflected in attitudes towards fireworks and the purposes for which they were used. In London, in the middle of the 17th century, there was general distrust of fireworks among scientists. However, later in the century, scientists and technicians started to look at the practical purposes for which fireworks might be employed, such as using rockets to help sailors establish their position at sea.
So what application did they investigate?
Practical uses of fireworks.
Correct. Practical. Then they were seen as a method of dash for people.
It was a different story in Russia, where the St. Petersburg Academy of Science played a key role in creating fireworks displays for the court. Here, Those in power regarded fireworks as being an important element in the education of the masses.
Education of the masses. So they were seen as a method of dash for people,
Education.
Education.
right?
And the displays often included a scientific message. Members of the Academy hoped that this might encourage the royal family to keep the Academy open at a time when many in the government were considering closing it. In Paris, the situation was different again. The Paris Academy of Sciences played no role in staging fireworks displays. Instead, the task fell to members of the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture. As in Russia, the work of the technicians who created the fireworks was given little attention. Instead, the fireworks and the spectacle they created were all designed to encourage the public to believe in the supreme authority of the king.
So they were emphasized to believe in the power of the king, right? And the scientists aimed to provide dash.
However, science was also enormously popular among the French nobility, and fashionable society flocked to demonstrations such as Nicolas Lemery's display representing an erupting volcano. The purpose of scientists was basically to offer entertainment to fashionable society.
What was their purpose here?
Entertainment.
Okay, in the 18th century, the Italian fireworks specialists became influential. They were very famous. Servedoni was this person. So his fireworks display followed the same pattern as a dash. કઈ વસ્તુ જેવું ને જેવું એનું પેટર્ન હતું ફટાકડામાં.
And academicians delighted in amazing audiences with demonstrations of the universal laws of nature. In the course of the 18th century, the circulation of skills and technical exchange led to further developments. Fireworks specialists from Italy began to travel around Europe, staging displays for many of the European courts. The architect and stage designer Giovanni Servandoni composed grand displays in Paris, featuring colourfully painted temples and triumphal arches. A fireworks display staged by Servandoni would be structured in the same way as an opera, and was even divided into separate acts.
So his performance was divided and it was influenced by what? The pattern was
Opera.
opera. Last one. The appeal of fireworks extended to the middle classes, so everyone started enjoying it. Some displays demonstrated new scientific discoveries such as dash.
Italian fireworks specialists were also invited to perform in London, St. Petersburg, and Moscow. As these specialists circulated around Europe, they sought to exploit the appeal of fireworks for a wider audience, including the growing middle classes. As in the previous century, fireworks provided resources for demonstrating scientific laws and theories, as well as new discoveries, and displays now showed a fascinated public the curious phenomenon of electricity. By the mid-18th century, fireworks were being sold for private consumption. So the history of fireworks shows us the diverse relationships which existed between scientists, technicians, and the rest of society.
So what was it? New discoveries such as
Electricity.
Yes. Right, and then it continued for the rest of the work for commercial purpose. So then everyone started using it. So that is the end of our listening.